Yo, I'm Bryce the Third.
And I'm Liz McKean.
And you are now tuned in to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. Here we dive into all the recovery stories from around the world.
And we talk about all pathways because there's no one right way to recover.
If you've been with us for a while, you know how powerful stories are. So get ready for your community to get just a little bigger today.
We are so glad that you're here. Let's get into the show.
Liz, what's up?
Nice. Oh, you know, just hanging out. Thought I'd podcast today. What's up with you?
It's so smooth how we've gotten into this groove of starting a podcast where it's just like, hello.
I know. No longer do we have a 5-minute conversation about how should we start the podcast? We don't have to say that we have a new intro, but this was a little, you know.
Well, you took it there.
Throwback Thursday.
You took it there. How's your energy?
It's good. I'm feeling very, I don't know. Like it's the time of year where I'm like, I don't really know what day it is or what my name is or what time it is or whether I'm doing anything I'm supposed to be doing.
I just want to say.
That's true. It's a little more, it's bigger this time of year. And so, but I'm also accepting it. I'm just floating along. So yeah, I'm in an energy of acceptance. How about you? How's your energy?
Wonderful. I'm good. I was on this podcast last night called Cold Sweats, and it's like a podcast and a sauna, and then you hop in a cold plunge, and it was really interesting. It was dope. I can't wait for the episode to come out, but it did help me to sleep good last night, boy, let me tell you.
Good.
So I'm feeling pretty rested and just ready for whatever the day brings.
I like it.
And in this moment, the day has brought somebody pretty dope into our space and on this podcast, somebody I've been knowing for a minute, somebody whose organization has taken space on the app in the marketplace of behavioral health resources and just an all-around cool dude. I think the first time I met this guy, I felt like I knew this guy. And, you know, I really value the relationships like that like they kick off like they've been kicked off for years. Liz, who do we have here today?
Ooh, I get to do it. Today we have Chris Tait, who I also have, well, I've only recently met Chris. It's been about a year, which I guess isn't all that recent, and felt the same way, like immediately like, oh, this is a person that I definitely am glad to know. I'm really excited our paths crossed. He's the director at Passenger Recovery, which is located in Michigan, but has been creating impact far and wide, and certainly has impacted me all the way over here in Rochester, New York. And we're so excited to hear more about him. And we're so glad that he's here, and we're going to finally let him talk. How are you doing, Chris?
That was one of the best intros. Can we just keep on that vibe for the rest of the time? So I just want to hear more. It's great to be here, and likewise, I feel the same way. I think when I met both of you, there's an immediate language and understanding that I think we kind of start to feel in recovery, even with people we've never met, which is magical.
Yeah, it's like you said, like it's a language, almost like an unspoken language, and I think it's contributed to my experience of everywhere I go, I know I'll find my people, and I don't think I used to have that. And what are some important spaces to you where you know your people are before you even get there?
You know, that's an interesting question. I think that's changed over the years. If I'm allowed to talk about it, not to tell war stories, but you know, bars and venues were my place for a very long time, and there was a communication there's a fellowship between musicians, I think, just like there's a fellowship between people in recovery, but that's changed very much over the years. And my spaces now are places where people are interested in lifting each other up. Not to say that it wasn't that way in venues. I mean, I think the experience, not to get too deep right out of the gate, I think the experience has changed up here. And the reason I bring that up, or the reason that pops into my head immediately, is because it's something I was thinking about earlier in the week, where a lot of my experience and the way it has changed has been down to my perspective. When I look at the surroundings for me as a person on tour, as a musician, have not changed so much. I still play the same venue that I took my last drink in, almost to the day I took my last drink, every year. So my last was April 4th, 2011. And the band that I am with is very much, I love them, but we operate very much like a Groundhog Day touring schedule. So it's a lot of the same thing. So like on my 1-year anniversary as a person in recovery, I was playing the same place.
Wow.
And that was an interesting, I use the word yardstick a lot. It has been an interesting yardstick. A lot of things have with the way my perspective has changed. Because the first year we were there, I was, MF in the universe. And of course we're playing here again, just to throw it in my face. And over time, it's become this really valuable measuring tool to see how things have changed year after year after year. Because when I was active in using, nothing changed. At the end, it was pretty dark and there wasn't a lot of change. There wasn't a lot of growth. And now I'm able to kind of measure that, which is awesome. But I love the fact that I'm blessed to be able to do that. And the reason I can do that is because of the new spaces that I found welcoming, like places that like what we strive for at Passenger, which is, I guess, welcoming and neutral ground for anybody who's coming in the door, with a lot of vibrant art on the walls, which I am at home today, so I can't show you, but I will send photos. We have a tour that I will send as well. Yeah, I'm somebody that attends a lot of support groups too. That has saved my life. I know that's not everybody's path, but what we attempt to do is kind of fuse that, so that we hold multiple support groups a week, but we also, Passenger Recovery is really focused on using music and the arts as a pathway. So, because, like, to go back to what I said about growth, it didn't really click for me until I felt like recovery was an opportunity for growth instead of a punishment. And I think for me personally, that's why I kept going back out. And so what we really want to do is make the experience as vibrant as possible for people, so that maybe incentivize people to go, this is something, I can exist here. It doesn't have to be a support group. It doesn't have to constantly be working on myself. That can be part of it. But I can also just do things here that don't involve previous substances, bad choices, whatever.
Yeah.
It's and I know, Liz, you about to say something. But it's interesting to think about, like, growth in terms of a yardstick, and even thinking, like, I've worked with people who, it's like, man, recovery, I've been damned to this corner. Like, go sit in this corner and that's it. Like, you're on punishment for the rest of your life because you couldn't handle life, And then when that thing clicked, and it's like, oh, wait, this is like, everybody could go through this process of, like, intentionally taking a look at, like, the motivations behind why I do what I do. Like, obviously the drugs and alcohol got me to have this conversation because that's been my specific journey. But this isn't like with a dunce hat sitting in the corner on punishment. Like, this is the opportunity to really, like, approach life in an intentional way. And then thinking about, like, growth with a yardstick, you can measure, okay, last year I was playing this venue and I took my last drink, and then this year I'm playing this venue and I've not been drinking for a year. And then maybe the next year it's like, this time I have, like, friends in the phone full of people who I can contact and have them support me from afar or close up.
And that was it. That really, not only was I allowed to change, I was allowed to look back on how I had changed and how my perspective on the situation had changed over the years. And of course, it makes perfect sense for me. Of course, early on, even in sobriety, that felt like a punishment because I was immersed in self-pity, because it still felt like a punishment. So, and because I had conditioned myself to be led by ego for a long time. And, like, I had spent years creating this persona that nobody really asked for. I'm the keyboardist in a rock band. I am not, Fred Astaire or Quincy Jones. I don't know why Fred Astaire popped in my head. I was just watching I rewatched the Quincy Jones documentary when he passed away.
Yeah.
And he had a great quote that was like, ego is just overdressed insecurity. Ego is just overdressed insecurity.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that was me in a nutshell, like self-loathing, self-obsessed.
But you know what? The thought just brought up, Emmy? There inherently is, I feel like there inherently is ego in wanting to be on stage and feel that I have the ability to impact people in a way that makes their night better or makes their night enjoyable.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know too many musicians who, like, just, like, I know some recording engineers who, like, okay, yeah, I'm just trying to make a couple of dollars. But I don't know too many, and I don't think it started that way. It just ended up becoming that way. But, like, I don't think it's too many musicians who play and tour who, like, I'm just making a buck. Like there's a bit of like, oh, I'm on stage. When I'm on stage, I get to share my art in a way that like alleviates people's stress or like makes their nights better, or this art needs to be shared. Like there's a bit of ego in wanting to not only create something, but share something in a way that we feel is important. And so what has been the process of navigating that experience? If you relate to that experience, I don't know, it's like one of the first things that just came to mind though.
Absolutely. When you were talking about that, it made me think of that, like the difference between the way music is consumed. And I was just so a couple months ago, I read a book called This Is Your Brain on Music by Daniel Levithan, I believe. And
how do I know that name? Has he written other stuff, or is he someone?
Familiar.
Yeah,
Daniel
he's
Levinson?
got a few books out.
Okay.
I don't know the other names.
That's okay.
Yes,
No, it just surprised me because I don't usually recognize, in that genre anyways, continue.
Well, he was talking about just a study that he had done and I'm going to blank on this, but it was like a third world country. He was in a village and he was kind of experiencing and embracing the culture. And they asked him to sing along with them because they had a group sing along. And he was like, oh, well, I don't sing. And they started laughing. He's like, what's funny? And they're like, well, for you to have a voice and not sing is for us to have legs and not dance. It's not, this is a community thing. And I love that story. I also love, if I'm being totally honest, the Golden God era of rock and, I love David Bowie and I love Beyonce and I love Freddie Mercury, right? So the thing that I always love to talk about, which didn't dawn on me till a couple years into my recovery, is that my place on stage is stage right all the way over, keyboards, and I typically wear sunglasses and I typically have 2 keyboards and all kinds of gizmos around me. I was like, wow, that is the perfect place for an alcoholic, because I hope it's okay that I use that. I'm comfortable.
However you identify. Like,
yeah.
Okay. No more of that. Just do your thing.
All right, cool. Because I have no problem with that, but that's it. For me, that's just a reminder to say that. It's not something I carry with shame. But it's the perfect place because I am just within throwing distance of the attention, but I'm still allowed to hide behind things. Which is, I'm not really exposing anything, but I am still getting your attention. And so anyways, that was just my experience. And I love looking on that and seeing, just having those bell ringers, of why things happen and how they happen. To get back to the identity thing, I think you're absolutely right, Bryce, and I totally agree. There has to be a certain amount of ego / identity / or inspiration that comes from within to create something.
Yeah.
For me, that was so skewed by the time I was even a very young man, where it had become, because I'd grown up loving these bands that had those big personalities. Like I loved The Cure, I loved Blondie, and they were so big to me that they created worlds of their own. They were such creative bands that I was really, really drawn to them. Early on, the shift focused from like me being a creative to me being obsessed with identity, and I think that ties hand in hand with my using. Because I really wanted I really wanted to frame the way everybody thought of me. Convince people I was person.
That's so resonant. It's funny because, sometimes we've had like the Phoenixes really embrace music as part of what we do. And Bryce is an artist. And so, we've had musicians on here, and often I find myself kind of sitting back and listening because I'm fascinated and love every single one of these stories, but I don't always speak the language and I don't always have the same experience. And, I felt this way in many 12-step meetings I went into, where like a lot of the talk was like about these big egos that had to be broken down. And I was in there thinking, cool, like I already hate myself and think I'm crap. So thanks for reminding me. And I'm just going to go home and do the same thing I've been doing, And, but then, in this journey of recovery and then over years of learning more about, the why, I'm realizing that it's all the same thing under the thing, but how it shows up is different. So for some folks, it's, I'm going to be on a stage and I'm going to show you I am cool. I matter in this way, and that can be used to your own detriment, certainly. And then for me, I think it so often was like, I need to show you that I'm good. And to show you I'm good, I need to make myself small and I need to hate myself enough so that all the bad stuff is forgiven before you even get a chance to see it. But it was still the same, like, let me create this caricature because what is really here is, I'm going I'm going to wear those sunglasses too, so I can see out, but you can't see in. You're only going to see what I let you see. And it's the same thing. It's just, it's a different like manifestation. And yeah, I had more to that, but I think I'm just going to stop there because damn.
And sometimes, kids, you get a mixture of all of it.
Yeah, for sure.
All in one bowl.
Yeah. Well, and I think, sorry, I remember the other thing I was going to say about it is that I think because so many of us have this through line of just like this identity kind of crisis, it on the other side, the potential there is in recovery. If we do get to the place that like we're able to embrace our whole selves and like maybe like take the sunglasses down a little bit occasionally, you can use that power for such good, like you're still up on those stages and it's making a difference. And then, we're all here on this microphone because we believe that we have the ability to say words that might help somebody. And like, that's some big ego energy, but also like hopefully for good. And there's just people in recovery are just so often my favorites, to be around because we're like, what didn't exist for me that I want to make exist? What doesn't exist that I want? And I know you've done that with Passenger, and we don't have to go there quite yet, but at some point I want to talk about how it started and how it's grown, because when we do really get that ego into the place that I feel like it can be the most helpful, we're able to do the thing that we think will help and then also see when it needs to shift. Anyways, okay.
No, that's
stepping off.
That's exactly it. As you were talking, it made me think of a quote that I heard, and I can't even remember where I heard it, but it has stuck with me forever. Part of what recovery has given me is this mentality. I hope you like me, but I'm okay if you don't.
Ugh.
And it's just, you know what I mean? And that's the opposite of me trying to control the pieces and shift the world so that people are seeing me a certain way, because I don't really want you to see what's over here. I mean, I think it's given me a balance between head and heart. So like a pure, it's allowed me to find out who I am. And then also I hope, actually I don't hope, it's fine. Be proud of who I am and what I'm creating regardless. Instead of hiding behind some kind of character. And I mean, not to put Bryce on the spot, but he is such an incredible performer, and you can see that balance. I mean, it's, we just, a few months ago, we did the Phoenix Sober Fest, and Passenger was fortunate enough to be a part of that and have a teammate. For me, it was selfishly, it was awesome because some of my favorite local artists were playing, but it kind of gave me a whole different look on it. It was like the whole experience for me from beginning to end was actually communicating with people, enjoying some awesome, amazing live music, and then being done with the evening and going home like a normal person instead of like, look at me, call the guy at midnight, Studio 54 till 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. And I'm going off. I'm going to get back on track, but I just wanted to give a shout out to the Detroit Phoenix people too.
Yeah, shout out to Detroit Phoenix for sure.
Jamin, Autumn, Bryce, Ryan, John, Mike, Joy, like that
home team.
Yeah, amazing group of people. But anyway,
right quick.
Yeah.
Because I'm having this experience that is an example of, I think, what I want to share. So, Chris, you talked about the you've seen me live. I haven't seen you live, which I'm kind of sick about. I can't wait to see you live one day soon, hopefully, please.
I'm gonna let you know. Spring at the Magic Bag.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Nice. Okay. And I think like recovery, man, it allows for us to, at least in my experience, it's allowed for me to use some of the things that manifested in not so good ways to learn how to cultivate either its opposite or use it in a way that like is a trigger to like show up differently. The whole thing around like, alcoholism or within 12-step, where it's like, I could try to figure out why I can't drink like somebody else, but that might be a waste of energy because the fact is I just can't. And so let me focus my energy on how I can show up with that thing. Like I just can't drink like that. So like, what are the ways that I can show up with that? So like
that truth.
There's things with my artistry and being a performer and knowing that there's been times where I've been on stage and hundreds of people are looking at me and I'm like controlling the room, where I've had to use that to like play the background, because I'll be itching like everything I say is important. Like I need to take, and I'm saying I'm having this experience now because I've had so many things I wanted to say, but I'm kind of like, this is, and I was just on a podcast last night, so I'm like, and I was the guest, so I could just like, but like I'm feeling that feeling, just like I feel selfishness. Like the selfishness that I had in my active addiction is not gone. It's still there, and depending on what seasons or what tools that I'm using to like massage it and keep it at bay, it can manifest in like nasty, like literal selfish ways. But I use it now in a way that like, okay, like I'm feeling that thing, like I want what I want, and I'm sad about it because it's not here. So maybe I can go and serve. Like maybe I can go put my hands into service, and then what that does is it alleviates like the grip hold that the selfish is inherent. I don't know where, you know what I'm saying? I don't know why it's there. I could try to, but it's just there. I want what I want, and it's about me. And when it gets really bad, like it's just overwhelming. And so like I take that, flip it on its head. Well, if I'm selfish, super selfish in this moment, how could I use that to show up for somebody else? And in artistry, where it's like I'm on stage all the time, what I'm saying is very important. I'm the main star of the show, like I'm the main character. Like I use that for opportunities to like, shut up, Bryce, like be quiet, like listen. And I think that's why, like when people share I go to 12-step meetings, like when people share, like I'm invested. You know what I'm saying? You know how people come to a meeting and they'll like be on their phone or whatever, and it's like, and then they share, and then the ones that you really like, okay, make sure somebody calls him after the meeting is the one that like shares and then gets up like after 2 people share, but it's still like 3 tables to go. Like you came to talk, huh? And the last thing I'll say is I'm reading this book. My man's Still Like an Artist. He made another one called Show Your Work. I forget the author's name, but he was like, I go to these readers or these writers anytime I'm there, like, people are talking about writing, and then I ask them, what are they reading? And you can always write somebody off as soon as they say, well, I don't read much. And it's like, well, the requirement for being a writer is to be a reader. You gotta be a student of like the art of writing by reading somebody else's stuff to be able to contribute anything. Otherwise, you're just talking, you're not listening. So like learning how to take these things that come with some of the nastiness that manifested in ways in active addiction, and in doing kind of like spiritual jujitsu and flipping it on his head to find the antithesis, or maybe the remedy that brings about the cessation of suffering, and also allows for us to contribute to the community around us. And I think like I really want to lead into like Passenger, because I know like people create things that like they need, and there's a bit of ego in wanting to create a solution that they see doesn't exist. But I think that's like ego on a leash, or like ego for good. So tell us a bit about Passenger, where the idea came from, and why it's so important that it exists.
Sure. And I just want to say I completely agree. And that's part of why I think I'll talk about it more later. But I love the fact that we've managed to bring this partnership together, because whatever form of service and whatever form of action, as long as there has to be some kind of action for us to change. And that was, again, in hindsight, I wanted things to change. I just didn't want to do anything to change. And so it requires action. And for us to, like the events that the Phoenix does, the things that we do, when I quit drinking, a friend of mine who was I was there with him every night till after close. Around the same time, he was like, yeah, I got to quit too. I'm just going to start going to the gym every morning. And it worked for him. People are different. I think if there was a magic answer, we'd all be doing the one thing. But a form of service to others and action for sure has completely changed my perspective and allowed me to fill those moments where I'm just sitting here. I mean, I can work on music like an addict. I know that I have a 3-hour creative window, and instead I'm here for 9 or 12. Long after I'm already judging what I've already done before I'm trying to move on to the next set of arrangements or tracks or whatever. So Passenger started, it started, I had just moved back to Detroit from California, and I was still touring. So I've been with a band called Electric Six for 22 years now. And I had just moved back to Detroit, and I was on tour with the band in Canada. So we were in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
That's a mouthful.
I was going to say.
It's about 10 hours east, I hope, of Calgary. We had driven from Calgary. That's how I know that. And I was a few years into recovery. We were about a month into a tour, so I was pretty twisted up. To date myself, there was no phone service in Canada at the time. So this was about 2004 14. So there was no calling somebody in a program that was helping me. It was just kind of like the Lonely Island thing that you feel when you lose your community. And so we got there. There was no green room. All the coffee shops were closed. So my tool belt was just getting thin and thinner. And we'd driven all day, so we kind of just had to get there. There was no green room. So it was either like I sit in this freezing cold van because we're in the middle of winter and read or listen to recovery speakers that I had in my phone, or sit at an actual bar, which I can laugh at now just because it's to me, it's madness, but that's the Midwest for a lot of musicians. It really is. And so that was the beginning. It was born of frustration. It was like, there has got to be an easier way to do this for mid-level musicians. And so when I got back here, I went to see a friend that worked at Brighton Center for Recovery. She was the art therapist there. And I told her about the idea, and she said, that's a great idea, but you're not ready for that yet. Why don't you come here? And I found out later she was, drafting me because they needed people. But that experience changed my life. And she was right. I had a few years of community and understanding, but I did not have any kind of frontline experience. So I went and worked there for 3 years and then started to build up Passenger slowly, based in Hamtramck, because Hamtramck is like the dive bar capital of Detroit. And these are the places that I love, these places, but they don't have a lot of space for people who are trying to kind of do things differently. So we started it here. I just started calling local promoters and letting them know that we would pick up musicians who were in recovery or needed space or wanted to go do laundry or hit a 12-step group or any kind of meeting. We get coffee, whatever, just to kind of, in case anybody needed to remove themselves from the venue. Because we are in the Midwest, and a lot of times, at the time especially, a lot of information online was outdated with like group information. I went to try and find a support group in Little Rock, Arkansas, and it led me to an empty field. I went to try to find one in Asbury Park, and it led me to a bar. There was just, and best of intentions, bless the people who do that volunteer work, but it just, when that information changes, at the time, there was just not, the capacity to update the information.
Like, it would be like grabbing an old newspaper and looking at the listings and thinking that those are going to be up to date. And it's like,
exactly.
No, a week later, it's not.
So that was where we started, is just a couple people that were willing to take people to get help if they needed it, or to just remove themselves from a venue for a couple hours that may or may not have any kind of green room or support.
Is that where the name Passenger came from? Because they were like a passenger? You were literally picking them up?
Passenger actually comes from 3 places. It comes from the first step of the 12 steps, so like powerlessness, being releasing control. The second was being, the actual transportation. And then the third was I wanted to represent Detroit music in some way, shape, or form. And that's my favorite Iggy Pop song. So it was, but first and foremost, I've just always liked that the idea of being the passenger in my own life, because I was such a control freak over things I had no control over. My first sponsor was an atheist. And when I was trying to kind of reframe the way I was going to recover by finding resistance to a higher power concept, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to or not believe, but I had issues with the higher power thing, and he was an atheist, and he was like, you don't have to believe in God, you have to believe you are not God. And so that also was kind of the beginning of that idea, is like, I am a capable human being, but I am not in the driver's seat.
And my spirit wants to scratch. It's so funny, like, I'm thinking, even as you described where the passenger name came from, I don't even like being in the passenger seat. Like, I do this funny thing where I'll complain like, I'm always driving everybody. I've always been driving since I was 13. I've always been the driver. I can never just sit in the passenger seat. But anytime I'm in the passenger seat, I'm like, why are you on the brakes like that? Like, hey man, like,
you're doing
you
it
ain't
wrong.
see the red light. What are you doing? Like, no, I don't like to be a passenger. That's interesting. That's interesting. And
I just got such insight to why you're a cat person, Bryce, and not a dog person. Because cats are always just like, do this, you're doing it wrong. Pet me, not like that. Feed me, not this.
And I just get it. I just get it. Like, and then I'll pet you in a way. Like, my cat Nyland was my mom's cat. Like, I'll pet him, but I know like if I pet him like this too long, he gonna smack it away. So then I'll come up and pet it like that, like because I get it, like
You get it.
he particular, I get
Oh,
it.
something clicked.
Yeah, yeah. Passenger, being a passenger, what do they call it? Submitting, throwing up my hands.
Surrender.
It's a practice. It's a practice. And so it started out as this sober green room for traveling musicians, sort of like a third space almost. I just kind of like came into contact with like third spaces as a like there may not necessarily be anything going on there, but you're welcome here. It's not home, it's not work, but it's like a space where you can come and be, and it's like a space that holds you in your specific experience.
Yeah, you can make it what you want it to be.
Yeah, and so I know now that it's kind of like taken off and become a little bit more than that. So what is the evolution of Passenger, and where are you at now, and how do we get there?
It's been a wild road, and also a practice in acceptance and surrender, and kind of if you had told me that it would end up where it is now, I don't know if I probably wouldn't have believed it. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's just gone in so many directions that I couldn't have foreseen. So for example, we started working on a meeting finder, and this was in 2017, and it was based on like kind of trying to give people accurate information. And we did Southeast Michigan so it was based on like my experience as a touring musician, people that aren't necessarily looking for 12 steps. So we did some 12-step in this meeting finder. It was called the Compass. We included NAMI meetings and Refuge at the time, or Dharma, to try and give people options. And it was powered by Google Maps. So you click on the meeting, and it will tell you how far away you are from it, what the actual information is on the meeting. It was based purely on user experience for somebody who needed information as fast as possible to get over the impulse to either use or act out. When I say act out, that's just me like potentially making a bad decision, or something that is addict behavior driven. And so we started with Southeast Michigan, and then volunteers started kind of coming on board. And there's a little bit of the Midwest on. My wife is British, so we started like as a passion project or labor of love. We started doing the UK. And as a result of that and being on tour, I met several people that are outside of the United States that, just by trying to get the word out on this meeting finder, that through the pandemic I have fused these relationships with. There's an organization in the UK called Music Support, and it was just us kind of talking about this meeting finder we put together that allowed us to start doing Monday and Tuesday online music meetings. Just before the pandemic, we were going to start doing them for touring people in different time zones, so that there were a couple different options. And then when the pandemic hit, these meetings continued, but they took on a completely different light or form of assistance to people, myself included, who were like, the wheels stopped. I have no idea what to do with myself, And it was, so not to get too far off track, but I guess that was another thing that really was beneficial for me, is to realize I can look at any situation as bad or good. And for the pandemic, amidst a myriad of bad things that happened, for me, it was really good because I was forced to look at things that I was running from. And at the same time, because the wheels had stopped on touring music, there were so many organizations that didn't know that the others existed, that were allowed to start making these partnerships. And so that was the beginning of it, came through this meeting finder we'd worked on. And then during the pandemic, we really met with people like Dissonance in Minneapolis, and Music Support in the UK, and the Sims Foundation in Austin, and Rock to Recovery in California. And it was just like a bunch of people doing similar things, but different, but they were all kind of light posts to their local communities, some bigger than others, but it really created this awesome network. And so that's when we started doing, so when post-COVID, we started doing advocacy events, the community, so that it was, okay, to let it be known that we were here to help touring musicians, but also to really invite people in. And for people who are concert goers, say, hey, we're not here to browbeat people, but we're here in the corner. Here's some entertainment. And if you're interested in local resources for recovery, or if you have any questions or you want to take something home with you, we're over here. And for the musicians, it's like, well, this is our workplace. So if you ever need to talk about how to navigate this in recovery, let's talk. And that's how I met Bryce, is we were setting those up with some local musicians, Jennifer and Dylan, who are old friends. And we just started, I think that was the first place we met, wasn't it, Bryce?
I don't think so.
What do you think?
I think we met at a meeting, bro. I think we met at a
Okay,
meeting.
okay, that could have been it too.
Yeah, and I think after that was that the music mixer that Jennifer put together,
Okay,
and I think I was on that bill. I think I played
yes,
on that bill. I think that was the wildest bill I had ever played in my city, man. Like there was like a mariachi band. There was like it was a
yeah.
whole bunch of like different music, and I'm like, man, wait till I get on stage. This is crazy, but it was fun, man. It was a good time. Jennifer is wonderful, and yeah, man, it was nice.
That and yeah, so that was the same thing, like making partnerships and meeting people. I met the two of them during the pandemic because they had a Facebook group that was trying to promote local music,
Mm-hmm.
and they needed a nonprofit to partner with to start generating money to give out to people, musicians and crew that were out of work. So they started like buying Kroger cards and you generating money to give people stuff that they needed, food assistance. We started like pushing grant opportunities for local musicians because like Music Cares was giving a relief fund opportunity. But it was like through Jennifer and Dylan and their Facebook platform, we ended up raising like $15,000 for people locally,
Wow.
which
Yeah.
for pretty small nonprofits at the time, it was awesome. It
Yeah,
was cool.
and I think like when you talk about these light posts or like once you start doing the work, you start looking around because by doing the work, you put yourself in the arena where the work is being done, and a lot of times we'll have this desire for a resource that we think doesn't exist or nobody's working on. But once we start working on building it and providing it for others, we'll see. You all are doing it, but in this way, or you all are doing it, but for this county, or you all are doing it, but utilizing these resources. And that conversation around like, how can we do what we're doing, but do it together in a way to where we can supply the resources that maybe you could take advantage of, and then you can have a bigger pool of people to get your resources to, or whatever the connection is. It's like that's how, and that's a big, conversation around what the marketplace on the Phoenix app and you coming on board with passenger recovery to the Phoenix app is it's like, okay, if you find one of us, you find all of us. You might not need all these resources, but all these resources are in one place. And how can we, as the Phoenix platform, give you the opportunity to benefit from the resources that we've been building? Because we see you as a lighthouse, we're a lighthouse, let's put it together. And whether that's locally or nationally, or, you said you was UK internationally, it's like, the people who do the work find each other, and then they do the work together, and that's how we make the work bigger and more accessible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there are people who have found our meetings from half the country away thanks to the Phoenix app, which is awesome because we do a couple of hybrid meetings a week. And it's really been an awesome multiplier or amplifier for us. A couple of people come from Texas, actually. So a friend of mine who was working in Austin at the time, to go back to this real quick, was the first person that told me about RCOs. And
for RCO is a recovery community organization. For those who are listening, do you want to what exactly is a recovery community organization?
The beauty of a recovery community organization is that it kind of depends on the people who are behind it. I mean, it has to have certain staples. It has to have peer support services. There have to be a certain amount of support options and resources that are available to the community. But I had been completely unfamiliar with this, despite having worked in the field. And a recovery community organization is exactly what I needed when I got out of rehab in 2011, because I went to a place called The Retreat that was in Minnesota. It was a great place, but it was kind of like, okay, you either transition to a Hazelden area sober living in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or good luck. And I had to come home for personal reasons, and I came right back to my old stomping grounds. And I got plugged into groups and meetings, and that was super important, but there was not a place for edit information and a place for me to congregate with others unless it was support group related, others of a like mind, or other people that were interested in a different lifestyle. And so that's kind of the beauty of what a recovery community organization is.
Yeah,
And
I feel like the heart of it too is like that sense of belonging that you get, like that's like I'm part of something, and I'm proud to be part of something, and I'm like welcomed here, and yeah, it's special.
Yeah, and I mean that's such a beautiful part of the Phoenix, which is why we were so fortunate as passengers, kind of a small local organization to be able to establish that partnership with you, because we can do those events. And when those events aren't happening, this place is going to stay open, and there are other things you can do. We have board games, we have music, we have instruments, we have
because
things
you're
for
a
people.
building now, because
Yeah.
that wasn't how it was. And that's still relatively recent, right? To be an actual like brick and mortar.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So and it took a couple of years actually, when I had heard about RCOs and the process, it took us over a year to even get the accreditation, despite the fact that we checked most of the boxes, because the language on the website was too specific to touring musicians, which was good because it taught me, in many situations over many years, I have needed lessons in patience. It's like, maybe we're not there yet. And we weren't. We did need to shift, because without the brick and mortar, which eventually came through the state of Michigan, thanks to support from the Department of Health and Human Services, we would not have been able to use music and the arts for the local community, which is the pivot that we had to make. And had we not changed the language ahead of time, that support wouldn't have come. So it was definitely, it's been a long road, but every step I say, okay, I understand why that needed to happen. I had more to learn before we got the doors open.
Yeah, now you open for business, and business is booming. Powwows there. You do a lot of like art recovery meetings there, and it's really like a space anybody can pop in at any time.
Yeah, we're there Wednesday through Sunday, and that's specific. That's, I guess, by design, because in my experience, a lot of artists and creatives, we exist in weird hours, and
We don't do Mondays.
most of the time over the weekend. And a lot of people, like my own creative side aside, if I'm working a regular job, I can't. A lot of mental health organizations are open 9 to 5.
Yep.
So all we wanted to do was change that up a little bit, so that we were open on the weekends, all weekend. Wednesday through Friday, we do peer support services during the day. Every night of the week, except Monday night, we have a support group or two. And then on the weekends, there's open time for people to just exist or create. We do creative writing classes, and we also do guided music listening, which is like Brian, who works with us, has a background in classical. So he does like focused music listening. Instead of music being the background, it's like at the forefront, and he gives a little context and when the piece was written. And it's like the whole thing is about being in the present and listening to this and putting it in front of you and focusing on it. And also classical music, I guess different types of music listening, but classical specifically can reduce anxiety, lower blood pressure. So it's a more focused activity instead of the way I consume a lot of music, where it's just kind of bouncing in the background.
Yeah, I love that.
But we have an open mic night with the Phoenix coming up between Christmas and New Year's.
Nice.
Which I love. I did an event with Hazelden a few years ago called Unhappy Holidays. And it was, community, but also maybe slight commiseration with the family situations that people have to deal with during the holidays. And it was between Christmas and New Year's. So I'm really excited that we're doing something similar, where people can just like either blow off steam or just have a good time.
That's an interesting concept.
Love it.
So far, I did something similar where they had like there was down at whatever the venue is, but it was like they had an upstairs and a downstairs, and it was like Valentine's Day on the bottom, and like all the artists were like there to sing about love, and it was an anti-Valentine's Day at the top, and you could choose
Lonely
whichever
Hearts
one
Club.
you wanted. Yeah,
That's
you choose whichever one you wanted. It was pretty dope.
I love that.
Well, that's beautiful, man. It's beautiful to hear how that came about, how that sprouted, how Passenger sprouted from your personal experience, and where you brought it to from where you get out of here. You have a upcoming collaboration campaign with Metropolis Records, correct? And
I
what's
do.
that all about?
We do. Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. I was so deep in this, I almost forgot about it. That's why you guys. That's why you two are the hosts. We do. Metropolis Records is holding a fundraising campaign to support Passenger, to keep all our programming, to help keep all our programming free, but also to raise awareness. Passenger. So the band Electric Six that I've been with for years and years, we've been with Metropolis for almost 2 decades. And Dave Heckman, who was the founder, passed away a few years ago. And his wife and daughter, Gail and Nina, who now run the label, really wanted to do something in his honor, which is huge to us because, Metropolis is, when I say they're a family, I mean they're a family. I would send Dave, the founder, back in the day, I had a bunch of side projects and say, hey, check this out. This is going to blow your mind. And he would reject them, but he would send me paragraphs as to why he didn't like it.
Wow.
And that, you don't get that kind of feedback.
No.
It's just like, don't call us, we'll call you. If we hear potential, cool, let's make some money. If not, don't bother me. And I mean, he would always do that. And to me personally, he spent hours talking to our singer and our manager. I mean, he just loved to get involved, which speaks volumes with the experience I've had in the music industry in the past. But he really cared about the artists, and his wife and daughter really still continue to carry that legacy. And I mean, this campaign is proof of that, because they really want to raise awareness for people who are on their roster who may be experiencing some issues from either being on the road or substance use disorder, XYZ, etc., but also to help us along the way, which is amazing. So we're really excited. There's a patronicity link. We're also going to be doing some incentive packages that to bring extra funding in along with the actual patronicity campaign. But the campaign itself will run till the end of January.
Is it an event, or is it's a like fundraising campaign essentially?
It's a fundraising campaign.
Yeah.
It's a fundraising campaign in honor of Dave, but anybody who contributes in any way will also receive a Metropolis kind of rare tracks compilation. The incentive packages I was talking about, so not to go off on a side tangent, but I do have, I've grabbed some local things. So I have like a Flogging Molly skateboard.
What?
Here that's going to go. And I have a signed drum head, thanks to Mike, their drummer, is an old friend. They're not on Metropolis, but I also have some Kiss gear here because their business manager, Angus, is a friend.
No kidding.
So I guess that's what I meant. The like campaign adjacent, there are going to be these other things that we're going to pepper in there to get people's attention that aren't necessarily specific to the Metropolis campaign, but like, hey, we have these other things available, and Metropolis will match any donation. So
that's huge. That's huge. I feel like that's I love those kinds of campaigns, because it just feels like, I think in any way, anything that's important to you, like every little bit counts, is really true. But when every little bit is matched and double, like that just makes it feel more exciting to even contribute. So that's very cool.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, anybody who it means more because it means somebody else is vested. Their interest is, they believe in this, which means the world to us.
Yeah, and we'll put the link for that down below, and wherever you are hearing this podcast at, you can go in the description, click on that link and support if it's something that costs to you. Yeah. Chris, man, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm glad to have finally gotten you on the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. Before we get up out of here, if you could go to any time period, whether it be the past, the future, or the present,
sorry,
and pick a version of Chris and tell that version something, what version of Chris would you pick, and what would you tell him?
Wow, that's a question. My first thought was I would go back to the person that was starting to slowly replace music with alcohol. Of course, I think with anybody, there's a balance there, and it starts to shift, and say, see what you can do without it, because it took me 20 years to figure that out. And I mean, going back to the identity thing, there was just so much time and energy on my part that was unnecessary, and so much damage done. There were consequences, like many of us. Yeah, I hear a lot of people say, if I would have told myself that, I would have done it anyway. So I guess I don't believe that there's a version of me that exists on this plane that wouldn't have gone through that. But I also don't believe that there's a version that I would have turned out any better, because I've experienced so much as a part of this journey that I had to go through. But that would be it. It would be me probably at about 20 years old saying there is a different way. There's a way. My family used to love to tell me, never ever pick the easy road. You never, saying to me, like, you never picked the easy road. And there was one available. I just wasn't interested in it. So an easier road.
No, sound advice. Well, yeah, thank you for coming to the show and gracing us with your presence. Yeah. And thank you all
both for everything you do. Both Bryce, Liz, the Phoenix. Thank you so much. It means the world, and I mean, to see what you've done nationally and globally, but then to also be a part of it locally is just dynamite. So thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Salute the work you do, and salute you all listening. And we will catch you next time on the next episode of the Rise Recover Lead podcast.
Bye.